Hey guys, time for another game theory, sort of psychological video, sort of. Remember, if you like the videos, like, sub, silly, comment, share, support the channel if you want. I appreciate it. Thanks. Today I'm going to talk about why people will always play Guilty Gear Strive, despite it being a quotation marks bad game, a flawed game, right? Why people will always play bad games no matter what, right? And these topics, they always just kind of come full circle and they come back to the stuff I've talked about, right? And for Strive specifically, because I watched maybe 10 minutes of Strive recently, right? Not even 15 minutes. I watched maybe 10 minutes of Strive recently. And while watching, just thinking about how terrible the game was and flawed it was in so many different ways, I just go back to what I talk about. And I'm like, man, this guy, for as many problems as this game has, as such a clusterfuck design it was, the guy can still make amazing characters, amazing redesigns of characters. And I'm watching Baiken, and it's weird because Baiken is a character that I feel like the community kind of says everyone hates Baiken, kind of thing. But I've always thought Baiken's pretty interesting, and her Strive iteration is no exception. You just watch her, I'm like, man, the grappling hook and all this kind of stuff, she just works so well how they redesigned her. Such a cool redesign, right? And it just goes back to what I talk about. You know what I mean? If there is, no matter how bad a game is, right? If there is some aspect of the game that you can only get in that product, there's always going to be a reason to play that product for somebody, right? When I talk about the narrative of selling a video game to a consumer, the consumer has to have a reason that I can get something from this product that I can't get from anyone else. That's why I talk about game system wise. Strive is really flawed with the wall, because the wall is not used in a way that you can tell the consumer without lying to them that if you play this game, the wall will put a new perspective on this game. You cannot get this sort of meta mind game, whatever, unless you play Guilty Gear Strive compared to a Tekken, Street Fighter, King of Fighters, whatever it might be, Smash Brothers. You know what I mean? You can't actually legitimately sell Guilty Gear Strive in good conscience to a consumer, saying that this wall is a new mind game that you cannot enjoy in Street Fighter, whatever. But something you can do to even the regular Guilty Gear consumer is the guy, he still makes interesting characters. A lot of the characters in the game are almost EX versions of the characters, right? And when I talk about, there's a danger of progression of video games, right? Because there's only so much you can do with characters, in the first place. And if you were to give a character every tool set that they've had in every version of a video game they've been in, inevitably there would be even more shades of gray. Characters would be too complete, right? So there's almost no reason to ever believe that this Baiken, she could be, who knows, right? But, the precedent is there. There's no reason to believe that this Baiken and all her complete tool set would ever be in another Guilty Gear game, right? At least having everything that she has, right? Unless they did EX characters and made them playable, right? And so from that perspective, character-wise, even if Guilty Gear Strive sucks, there's always going to be a reason to play it because, hey, I like that version of Baiken. Oh, hey, I like this version of Chip. I like this version of Faust. I like this version of Soul. I've talked about Xrd before. Look at how they reinvented, tweaked Johnny and Xrd. Don't care about Xrd, and I'm sure not everyone cares about Xrd, but there's probably some people like, wow, I love Johnny and Xrd. I like Plus R, old school Guilty Gear, but maybe Xrd Johnny is just fucking awesome. So I got to play Xrd if I want that Johnny, right? That's a way that, developers actually, it's kind of sad, that you would think you're not going to get this character that you like, this version of the character you like in another said game, but there's always going to be a reason to play a flawed game like Guilty Gear Strive, because no matter what a clusterfuck it is, because the developers still are making interesting characters, there's going to be someone that wants to play that version of the character. Look at a game like King of Fighters. For so many fucking years, like I said, they reinvented their characters so well. Look at a character like Kyo. Kyo has so many different versions of Kyo, Fire Punch Kyo, dude, and they're almost all cool, right? Even yet, you got like King of Fighters 99, Kyo 1, Kyo 2, NES Kyo. Even NES Kyos are not the same if you think about it, right? There's almost like the 99 NES Kyo. Then there's like the 2000, 2001 kind of NES Kyo. Then there's the Neo Geo Battle Coliseum NES Kyo. You know what I mean? That's crazy, dude, right? And they're all kind of interesting, right? You know? And so there's always going to be a reason that someone's going to be like, man, I want to play that one version of that character, right? For better or worse, you know, and I'm sure you can see, you know, the kind of, you know, the good side of it and the bad side of it. I mean, I could even tell you, I've never actually done it, but me as a nerd, I actually sometimes have had a desire to try to play King of Fighters 2001 again, just because if you've ever played King of Fighters 2001, K's Dragon Punch in King of Fighters 2001 is the most badonkulous, crazy, you know, it's not like overpowering or anything, but it's just such a bizarre Dragon Punch. Like his Dragon Punch, if you've never played King of Fighters 2001, it's a super slow, super invincible, full screen Dragon Punch that goes corner to corner when he kicks you. And it just looks so ridiculous, but it was so cool. I wish they would put it in another version of the game, right? I mean, of course, the Dragon Punch is still, you know, he does an uppercut and then he kicks you down, but then you can do the minute spike after it, right? But it's just such a radical version of it, dude, that goes full screen corner to corner. It just looks obnoxious, right? So I'm saying, like, even me as a nerd, I've never actually put it in, but I actually have had a slight desire to put in King of Fighters 2001 just because I want to see his fucking stupid Dragon Punch in that game because it's fun to me, you know? I talked about games like, you know, Karna's Revenge, right? You talk about characters, right? Look at characters like, you know, a lot of people don't give a fuck about Karna's Revenge. Admittedly, you know, it's a game that is, you know, a clusterfuck game that has a deceptive amount of skill despite being a clusterfuck. There's some skill to it, right? But you look at that game, right? And you're like, why would I play Karna's Revenge? Which actually I was thinking, is Karna's Revenge actually, if I think about it logically, a worse or better game than Guilty Gear Strive? Guilty Gear Strive is obviously infinitely more interesting than Karna's Revenge, but I actually had a thought, I'm like, is Strive legitimately a better game than Karna's Revenge? I was actually trying to think, I was like, man, I actually would have to think about that. It's kind of weird, but Karna's Revenge is not the most interesting game ever, but it does have characters Mizuguchi and Karnov. And look at Karnov, right? Karnov is a character that even casual fighting game fans have probably heard Balloon, right? You know what I mean? They've probably seen that. It's like a meme, right? Probably have never played Karnov's Revenge, but they probably have heard of Karnov and doing a balloon, right? Because he's that much interesting of a character. Look at Mizuguchi. Mizuguchi is such a beloved character, you know what I mean, to a certain degree, that he's been in multiple different games, right? He was in some kind of 3D beat 'em up game, you know what I mean? He was even brought back from Maximum Impact, you know what I mean? He's a character that is actually kind of so beloved, right? That he's been in multiple different games. You know, he's a character that maybe a hater might tell you is a Shoto clone. But if you see a Mizuguchi, especially for the time, even now, you think about the grand scheme of video games, like, wow, Mizuguchi is actually a very interesting character in that game. And I talk about his blue DP is serendipitously, or maybe it was on purpose, one of the most interesting moves in fighting game history, if you think about the way that it works, right? So, especially, God, the time that it was made, and then all the little quirks of it. So the point is, I've said I've played Karna's Revenge before. I haven't played it in, 9 months or something? Who knows how fucking long it's been, right? Whatever. Since I was beating people and they got me banned. Like, so it's not a game that I have a huge desire to play. But and you know, of course the game has so many, God, a lot of the characters are very fucking bland and terrible, but that even goes along with more of what I'm saying. But then you think, wow, but I'm only ever going to get a real Mizuguchi in that game. Maybe, right? Unless they decide 20 years after the fact, now we're going to put a real version of the... Wow, actually 20. What is it? 30 years, actually. Jeez, the game's older than that, right? 30 years, maybe? I'm only ever going to get Mizuguchi or Karnov if I play Karna's Revenge, even if I don't really care about the game per se, right? And so people will play bad games because of that, right? so to speak, if you get what I'm getting at. You think of the King of Fighters example, and how sometimes people, you know what I mean? Sometimes people just play bad games because there's some kind of nostalgic memory, right? Oh, I liked this game as a kid. I had a lot of fun. I have that nostalgic feeling, and I want to play that game. Look at a game like Alpha 2. What a clusterfuck. People talk about Alpha 2, and it's amazing. You talk about people, when you listen to people and they talk about, that are Alpha 2 fans, and they talk about the game, how often do they talk about the game? They're not even talking about the game. It's not even a logical conversation. What they're talking about is not how the game works at all. They sound insane, actually. It's like, what game are you playing? Oh, I hate Super Turbo because supers are too powerful. Oh, I hate Alpha 1 because I don't like, chain combos. But I sure do love custom combos in Alpha 2. Like what? Are you fucking kidding me? You hear shit like that? You can't have you like Alpha 2. Obviously, there's some kind of different reason you like Alpha 2. There's some reason that you specifically want to play Alpha 2. So the point is, even quotation marks bad games, if there is a reason that you can only get an aspect of that game that you can only get in that game, even if it's bad, there's always going to be someone that wants to play your bad game. And that's why I watched 10 minutes, I don't even think it was 15 minutes of Guilty Gear Strive, right? And, I just watched Biking, and I was like, man, this game sucks. This game is so bad in so many ways. There's very few good things about it. But man, the characters are still, wow, you can see the characters, and there's always going to be a reason to play this game, right? You know what I mean? I still can't believe they haven't fixed the wall. Fix the goddamn fucking wall, you fucking idiots, right? You know what I mean? But again, a perfect example of the fucking game is, the game is bad when the game is more talked about because of the fucking politics of fucking, the characters, and the gender politics in the game are more talked about than the actual game. So the game is fucked up because of that, right? I mean, look at how the game is, the fucking meta graphic or whatever, analytic graphics of how much discussion the game gets, you know what I mean? When you change a character's identity now, it's more important than the game. But yeah, even that's a good reason. People will always play Strive because there's always going to be someone like, oh my God, they changed the character's gender in this. Now we have an LGBTQ representative, even though these fucking people forgot, like, oh, wait a second, we already had Venom. Oh shit. Guess we better forget that, right? Anyway, remember if you like the videos, like, subscribe, comment, share, support the channel if you want. I appreciate it. Thanks. The end.